is a knife if you want. Tov yafeh. Yafeh. So we're learning laws of Brachot. Stephen, how you doing? Borei Nefashot? Up by heart?
Not really.
No, not.
Halfway. I try, but I cannot remember the whole thing.
Aha. Okay, by Sunday.
Okay.
By Sunday, B'ezrat Hashem, right?
Yeah.
Okay. By Sunday. 1070. He forgot it, he said it's okay.
Okay.
Sorry. 1077. 1076. Or actually 1078 is what I want to show you. 1078, 9, and 80. We have Birkot HaNehenin, blessings on pleasures. So we talked about food, but there's other pleasures in the world. And sights and sounds. We talked about the other senses, not just the sense of taste, but the sense of sight, sense of hearing. So there's additional brachot. The custom, we'll talk about them, these blessings, there are some laws and then there are some customs. The first one, I don't know why he brings it here. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, malbish haomim, who clothes the naked. Our sages instituted that we say this every morning as part of the morning blessings, 15 morning blessings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know why he brings it here.
Well, here is written new clothes. What should be?
Wearing new clothes, yes. I don't know anybody. Yeah, Shechianu is usually what people say. I'm wearing new clothes. So I don't know why this Sidur has this blessing. Let's see if there's anything I can find. There's no footnotes here explaining this. Why the Sidur has this bracha here. I don't know anybody that makes the bracha malbish haomim on new clothes. I think most common we say shechianu. If you're happy. Next, here we have the bracha on smell. Now there's 3 brachot. Take a look over here. There's 3 brachot. Good morning, Yov.
Good morning.
The bracha is minei vesamim. Right? In what are spices? Spices are called in Hebrew vesamim. Well, really, spices are called bisamim. Someone puts on perfume. It's called bosem. You put on bosem, bisamim. But there is a principle of dikduk that you have a connection with the word before it. So if the last word, it's called the construct form. If the last word ends with one of the letters called Aleph, Hey, Vav, or Yud, I think that if it's one of the open those vowels, usually a bet at the beginning of the word is supposed to have a dagesh inside. That's the dot inside. So usually that's why we say bisamim. Whenever you have a word like a bet, or a taf, or a saf, or What other differences do we have? A fe or a pei. So when it's at the beginning of the word, it gets a dagesh, it gets a dot, and therefore it's the hard consonant sound. Pei, bet, and taf. But if it's connected to the previous word, which ends with an aleph, hey, vav, or yud, otiyot ehevi, so then those words are connected. They're not separated. There's no major break between the two words, but it's co-joined with the previous word. So then the dagesh falls off. The dagesh falls off, and the pei turns into a fei, the bet turns into a vet, and the taf turns into a saf. And so that's why the correct pronunciation is as I wrote it, minei v'samim, not bisamim, but minei v'samim. You have it here, borei minei v'samim, about five lines down, on all other sins. So that's the general bracha on minei, is types. What does he say in English? Minei v'samim, the various spices. Who creates the various? Minei is types of spices. So that's the equivalent of shehakol niyeh bidvaro. Right? We said if you eat any food in the world and you don't know if it goes from the ground, it's go on a tree. You don't know if there's wheat inside, any grain. You don't know. Shehakol covers everything. The same thing with spices. You don't know where it comes from. So you say, borei minei v'samim. And the Ashkenazi custom is that when we say Havdalah every week, we always say, borei minei v'samim, even if we know where it comes from. Because the sages in Ashkenaz, the rabbis there said, it's confusing, it's too confusing. People will know, and they'll get the wrong bracha all the time. So for Havdalah, that's the one time a week where you must smell some spices. We always say Munei v'samim. But the Sephardi custom is no, like the rest of the week, there is actually 3 different options. If it grows from a tree, it's a say. It's. If it grows from the ground, it's a bush. Isbei. That means grasses that smell good, like nana or lemongrass. There's no tree there. It's not a bush that stays from time to time. So you have atzei and isbei, and there's one other bracha on smell. It's special? Yeah, what's it for? What do you mean?
It's for balsam, right?
Balsam, that's smelling balsam oil. Shemen arev. So there's another one. That's, what's balsam oil? What is it? It's a special type of plant. I don't know if balsamic vinegar is the same thing. I don't know what exactly, but I think there's a special plant that was called balsam, and then they made from it oil. They put it in oil. Borei shemen arev. I have to look up exactly when we make that bracha. But the other one I was going to think about is you don't have some leaves from a tree that have a good smell, and you don't have some leaves from the grass from herbs that grow, but you actually have a fruit. The fruit itself smells good. Many times, take a lemon. Smells good. Etrog, classic. So there's a separate one for perot. It actually has a little bit of a different beginning as well. You can see it here. Hanoten reach tov. Hanoten reach tov baperot. Hanoten reach tov baperot. Let's take a look. We'll see them inside one after the other. Okay, so on page 1078, we'll look at the list where it says blessings and pleasures, sights and sound. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who clothes the naked. As I said, I don't know who makes that bracha. Number 2, on smelling fragrant shrubs or trees. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates fragrant trees. For example, rosemary. Right, the bush stays all the time. It just gets new leaves. Take a little bit of rosemary. Sometimes they have that in where I live. They have that public lining the streets. So when I'm going for a walk with my wife, I pick a little bit of rosemary. Make a bracha, borei atze v'samim, because it's a tree. And smell fragrant herbs, grasses or flowers, like if you smell rose. Well, rose is a tree. There's other flowers. Lemongrass is a good example. It's not quite a flower. There's flowers that, like our petunias now, they have a beautiful smell right near our door.
Magnolia flowers smell really good. I don't know if they have magnolia trees there.
Yeah, sure. We have magnolia. But I didn't notice that they smell, but there's different kinds. Anyways, what's the bracha? Borei isvei besamim. Isev, yes.
If we are not sure, can we just say
Mine. Mine, you can always say mine, yeah. If you're not sure. Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's like giving your wife a compliment. You look nice. You know, better than nothing, but it's not the ideal. Right? You wanna be more specific as possible. And then fragrant fruit, you see it here. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives pleasant fragrance to fruits. And then there's this shemen arev, balsam oil. I don't know when you make that bracha. I'll have to get back to you. I'll do my learning over the weekend.
It's not for like perfume.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It says that this is actually being created only, I believe, in Israel, and this is a special oil.
Right, I think it's a special plant which was attributed to King Solomon's wife, Queen Sheba, who came and brought gifts from Egypt, right? From Africa. Queen Sheba came and she brought gifts. One of the gifts she brought was, what's it called? Balsam, but what's it called in Hebrew? It's called... I can't remember right now, but there's a special fragrance, special type of herb that she brought. And they think they found it in the near the Dead Sea. There's a ma'ayan. There's a beautiful oasis, and they found some ancient trees from like thousands of years ago. And I'm thinking this might be Queen Sheba's. I can't remember what it's called. Afar Simon. Afar Simon in modern Hebrew just means a persimmon. A persimmon is just a normal fruit. But when they're talking about Afar Simon, they're talking about a special plant that had very special smell that was magical. That really had power over you. So Afar Simon is it's ancient. Maybe that's what they made Shemen Arev with. But I have to look it up. Anyways, then the final bracha here on smells is borei minei v'samim, creates the various spices. Minei v'samim is a general term for all types of spices. So there we go. Atze, isbe, or minei, and then that doesn't happen to me too often. You take a fruit and you smell it for a good smell. But if you did, you would say hanoten reach tov baperot. There is another one. It's interesting why it's not here. There's another bracha on smell, which is actually quite relevant here in Machon Meir and in Kiryat Moshe for years. I mean, now they've already torn down part of the bakery. The Angel's Bakery. now they're building high-risers and a whole, complex of office buildings and commerce. And just down, you go out of the Machon Meir, you have the circle, you turn left at the circle, you get to the intersection where the stoplight is. So on the right-hand side, there's still a bakery, a small factory of Angel's Bakery. Of course, they have used to be on the left-hand side of the street. Massive silos and even bigger, where they would mill the wheat into flour, and it was like the biggest production plant of flour and baked goods. And so the whole neighborhood used to smell of freshly baked bread and cakes all the time. So there's and if you go into a bakery where they're freshly baked bread, there's a bracha. There's a bracha on smelling the beautiful smell of beautiful. I forget what it is though. It's not here.
But what if you don't like the smell of it?
I think it's anoten reach tov bapat, not in perot, but in pat pita. It's bread. So anoten reach tov bapat. So if you would walk into or take, go to the shuk, and you go to a bakery that's and you specifically want to enjoy the smell of this bread, then you would make this bracha. Pick up a piece of bread and make a bracha and smell it. Just like you pick up a fruit, make a bracha and smell it. Someone says, smell this. Isn't that great? So you make a bracha, noten reach tov baperot, or noten reach tov bapat. The problem is, as I was saying, if you live in the neighborhood, so you're always smelling it. You're not really intending to smell it. And it's maybe not so intense if it's outdoors. If you go inside the bakery, then it's really intense and you can pick up the piece of bread and put it near your nose, then you make the bracha. But if you're just walking around the neighborhood, especially if you live here, like Israel lives across the street, then it's always there. You don't notice it. You don't really appreciate it. So I heard once, I think Rav Mordechai Eliyahu spoke about this, and he said maybe on the day after Pesach, because they didn't bake bread all 7 days, and then all of a sudden you're excited about the smell, then it's something special. Or, like I said, you walk into the bakery specifically because of the smell and it hits you, you can make a bracha. But usually, just walking down the street, most people don't make a bracha on the special smell of the bread. But there is another bracha here, ten reach tov bapat. So again, it's more rarely made. I think maybe once or twice in my life I made a bracha on smelling a fruit. Fruit. And bread, I don't think I've ever made that bracha.
But if you're eating, Rabbi, the food, you're not going to...
So when you eat it, you're concentrating on eating. And so maybe the bracha that you make on the eating is going to cover both the taste and the smell. So that's also the question of... many people get into this problem on Sukkot. On Sukkot we have the 4 species, one of which is the etrog. The etrog has a lovely smell. And so why don't you pick up the etrog, smell it, and make a bracha? Noten reach tov baperot. The answer is, well, you're using the etrog for a mitzvah. You don't want to misappropriate the fruit that's designated for the mitzvah of the 4 species, and then use it for just smelling it for your own pleasure, right? This is just your own pleasure. When you have pleasure, you make a bracha. So you shouldn't really, until Sukkot is over. Once Sukkot is over, the mitzvah is done, then you can take up your etrog if it still smells good after being handled for 7 days. Sometimes they say get a little brown. Maybe the smell dissipates, but if you take care of it well, it could still have a nice smell. I think usually it does. And then you make the bracha, noten reach tov baperot, and you can smell the etrog. But beforehand, maybe before you buy it, you could make that bracha when you're going shopping. But once you designate it, you're buying it for the sake of a mitzvah, you're really not supposed to. Now, it could be before Sukkot starts. The mitzvah hasn't started yet. But there is a whole debate about, whether you designate something for a mitzvah becomes already dedicated to that purpose, even though you haven't started using it yet. So there's a lot of debates about what the rules are in terms of dedicating something for a mitzvah, if it has to also be first use or just dedication is enough. As I usually don't make a bracha on my etrog, I'm careful not to pick it up next to my nose. So I'm not specifically trying to enjoy it, and so I don't make a bracha.
Sometimes the smell too strong,
Sometimes it's strong, yeah.
It's not like you intend to go and smell it.
Right.
To the house.
Right. So I think a lot depends on your mindset. If you decide, okay, I'm not intending to smell, so you don't have to make a bracha. But like I was saying, somebody walks around the neighborhood near the bakery. You're not intending to specifically. It's overwhelming you, but you're not intending to smell. It's like you're walking down the street and you pass by some rose bushes. You don't have to make a bracha. You're not intending this, but if you stop by the rose bushes and put your nose to the rose, so then you would make borei atzei v'samim. Right, and again the v'samim, because the bet turns into a vet because it's a conjoined with the word before it, v'samim. Yeah.
How about during Sukkot, there's a drop for the mitzvah, but it's not applicable for the woman or children. But they come to smell the fruit. Can they make the bracha or no?
It's a good question. So women can do the mitzvah.
Oh, yes.
They don't have to do the mitzvah because it's a time-bound mitzvah. We have a general principle that all time-bound mitzvahs women are exempt. But if they want to, they can. And the Ashkenazi women, the practice is they even make a bracha. Sephardi women don't make a bracha. It's a debate between the Sephardim and Ashkenazim about this custom, whether you make a bracha or not. But in any case, so children also, they have to learn. They have to be trained to keep the mitzvah when they get older. So I'd still say they're connected to the mitzvah. And the etrog itself is designated for your mitzvah, so they shouldn't be misappropriating it either. So, but a lot of people don't really know that, but it's important. Okay, but we'll try to complete the picture next time. We have here on page 10, 78 and 79 a few other blessings now upon sight, upon seeing amazing things. Towards the bottom of the page, as a matter of fact, this bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Oseh Maaseh Bereshit, author of creation. It says here on seeing the wonders of nature, such as lightning, and on the 28-year solar cycle. Once every 28 years. I've done it twice. When I was a kid, like 10 years old, and then 28 years later, I guess I was 48 years old, or less. 38 years old. No. 38 years old. I made this bracha again. It's a very unique bracha because the way the astronomy works is that they make a calculation of when the sun first shined in creation, when it was created. What were the conditions? And we know that there's the solar cycle, the position of the sun vis-a-vis the earth and vis-a-vis the other stars and the other constellations. It comes to exactly the same point after 28 years. There's a 28-year cycle. And so there's a special bracha. When it happened a few years ago. When it happens again, it'll be another 25 years or so. Usually we make a big event of it and we try to appreciate that Hashem created the world and created the sun, but it's quite rare. There is another halacha, again, most people don't do this, particular bracha, and that is that every change of the season, in particular for regarding the sun, at the beginning of summer season. Do you know when the beginning of the summer season was? Yesterday. Yesterday. Because it's the equinox, this is the longest day of the year. Yesterday, so it's officially when the summer begins. It's called Tkufat Tammuz. Today is Gimel Tammuz? Dalet Tammuz, right? The beginning of Tammuz. So beginning of Tammuz, that's the official summer season, halachically. And some poskim say you can say this bracha, Oseh Maaseh Bereshit, when the sun is at its height, at its peak of its strength. It's the summer season when the sun is strongest. You make a bracha over the sun. Oseh Maaseh Bereshit, author of creation. We thank Hashem for making the sun. I don't think it's quite common to make that bracha, but some poskim suggest that we should. In any case, it's generally Oseh Maaseh. So the most common occurrence is, as you can see here, lightning. Lightning. Whenever there's a storm, not always, but when there's a lightning storm, you have to be careful though. Not in Arizona. Not in the desert. There is a phenomenon of a lightning storm in the desert, which is just, I think it comes without rain.
Is it heat lightning?
Heat lightning, yeah. Yeah, it's not connected to rain. It's sort of like just static electricity in the air, something like that. I don't know.
Clouds? No clouds?
No clouds, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Crackles in the sky.
Yeah, so that's not really considered the lightning. We're talking about lightning here. We're talking about the phenomenon we all know from thunderstorms and lightning, and it can be dangerous if you get hit by it. Put up the lightning rod. But anyways, it's like a wonder of nature. But don't get confused. It's not only lightning. When you go to the Grand Canyon, or when you go to a beautiful, extraordinarily beautiful, the Alps, or the Himalaya mountains, Tzfat, it's beautiful. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. The question is it extraordinary beauty? Is it extraordinary? Maybe when you live there in Tzfat, you see it every day. You wake up and you have a coffee, and you look at Mount Meron. It's beautiful. But my daughter painted Mount Meron. She lived in Tzfat for a while, and so I had the picture on my wall for a while. So I got used to it. It's beautiful still, but it's not necessarily extraordinary for you. Here's where we get into the trouble of saying what the custom is, what the custom is not, because these brachot have to do with subjective feeling. I'm impressed. I'm in awe when I see the Grand Canyon. People come from around the world to see it, right? The Alps in Switzerland or France, right? This is just, very breathtaking. Meron is beautiful. I don't know if it's on the same level as, everybody's breath is taken away. Listen, if you've been, locked away in a prison for 30 years, you come out, you'll be amazed to see just a tree. But for most people, I'm saying, most civilized society, people get out, they'll see things. There's some things which are beautiful, and you go to a nice garden, it's beautiful, but you don't really make a bracha on it because it's not extraordinary. Oseh Maaseh Bereshit is like lightning. It's a phenomenon of nature that where you're just appreciating the beauty that God did, and it's also from the days of creation. You assume that it's not necessarily something that is happening now.
It's meaningful to you? I mean, if it's
impresses you, and you're moved. You're moved by it, so you should take that and connect it to Hashem, to your worship of Hashem. You shouldn't let things go by, let these opportunities go by. When your soul is stirred, you don't want to be secular. You don't want to just have it meaningless. You want to appreciate Hashem who created the world. So these remind you of Hashem who created the world. Lightning is a little bit confusing because it's something that's current, happens now, but I think the theory is that it reminds us of when God created the world. So it's sort of like a reminder that God created the world and the power of the Creator. Whereas the second bracha, next bracha, it's 3 from the bottom of the page, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shekocho gvurato melei olam, is on hearing thunder, experiencing a hurricane. That's when you see God's power today. And so a hurricane, a big wind, thunder, is, it's the gods playing bowling. No, what's thunder? It's an American fairy tale about when you hear
It was Thor with his hammer.
Thor with his hammer. That's it. So we don't believe in that stuff. It's Hashem's power, something that gets created now, and so we say His power and His might fill the world. So when there's a natural event of extreme nature, you can make the bracha shekochog v'rotem ha'olam. So it's the standard when wintertime, you have thunder and lightning, there's a thunderstorm, so you listen, and when you hear thunder, you make sure it's not a truck falling, or you make sure that it's not a sonic boom of an aircraft. You make sure, whatever, if it's, you see the outside, you see there's clouds, it's really rain clouds, you make the bracha, shekocho ugvoroto malei olam, and then you keep looking in the skies, and you see lightning, then you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, oseh maaseh bereshit. Some people say you really should only make the two together. So you should wait if you see lightning, you shouldn't make the bracha yet.
You got like 5 seconds, 9 seconds until the thunder.
That's it. It depends how far away it is. Because the light travels faster than sound. So if the storm is 20 kilometers away or 100 kilometers away, you may see the lightning, and then you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can figure out. Then you hear the thunder. The thunder and the lightning were together over there, but the sound travels faster. The light travels faster than the sound. In any case, some people say you really should see them together to make sure that it's not a type of lightning which isn't real, like those electric stuff. But we're not in Montana, and we don't have that kind of lightning around here too much. Pretty much, if you see the lightning, it's part of the thunderstorm. You can make the bracha oseh maaseh bereshit, and then when you hear the thunder, you say shekochog v'rotem ha'olam. This is my leniency, but the poskim do speak about saying the two brachot when you're sure that the lightning is part of the thunderstorm, and so you say both brachot, oseh maaseh bereshit on the lightning, shekochog v'rotem ha'olam on the thunder. It's good to have them memorized because you hear the thunder. So, where's my siddur?
Rabbi Google.
Now that your app. What's the bracha on thunder? Very good. Talk to me, Siri. Right? Google. What's the bracha on thunder? And then it'll give you the bracha right. So it's not so hard. So you don't have to memorize.
What if you go to the North Pole and see the aurora?
That's the oseh maaseh bereshit for sure. That's a amazing phenomenon. But it's like always there. It's not like, so I think it's part of creation. It's like the mountains. It's like the mountains. For you, it's moving, for sure. You make the bracha, oseh maaseh bereshit, for sure.
How about the ball of fire?
What ball of fire?
Yeah, in Philippines we have this because it's a tropical area.
What's the ball of fire?
It's like fire traveling there randomly. You'll see it
In the
forest.
sky?
No, in the forest.
In the forest?
Yeah.
Is it fire?
Yeah, it's fire.
It's burning up a forest?
No, it's actually randomly travel, like going here, going there, very fast.
It's a volcano.
It's weird, but
Never heard of such a thing.
it's actually the positive and negative charge of the weather.
Oh, so it's the electric lightning. It's like a form of what we were talking about before. So I think
The
that
sky? You serious?
Forest.
In the sky?
It's fire.
You're messing with us.
No, you can search it in YouTube.
Rolling
There's a lot
balls
of
of fire
videos.
in the jungle.
Not rolling
What
fire.
do you call
It's
it?
like
Ball of fire.
they said they call it like San Telmo in the Philippines.
which means
Ball of fire.
ball of fire. Okay, interesting.
Like there's sun in the morning.
I thought because we all
Yeah, of course.
live in the ocean because there's like the ocean is very cold and the weather will be summer and when the negative and positive charge combine together, they make fire.
Right, interesting.
It's a mythical creature.
You say it's a mythical creature. You're looking at
it's
Google.
It's not a creature. It's like a folklore in the Philippines. They make stories out of it. San Telmo in Philippines. They said that it's a ghost or something, but the science explained it's like a negative and positive charge.
What are you finding on Google here? People here doing the research.
From the pictures, it looks like a Bodhisattva.
The research team here is.
It's very often it happens in the.
Often, okay, very interesting.
But most of the people are scared because there's like a thing embedded in their mind that it's a ghost or something.
So if it's just electricity, it's probably that type of lightning which you shouldn't make a bracha on. But we're talking about the lightning which comes with thunder, the lightning that has electric current, very powerful, concentrated. You have pictures there of it?
We've got some graphics, we've got some illustrations, we've got some.
Let me see what you got here.
Is this like the chupacabra in the Philippines?
So which one?
Philippine urban legend. But you've seen it? You've seen it for real? You've seen it?
Most of the people in my province see it, like very often in the ocean, because there are fishermen and they often.
Have you personally seen it?
I never seen it.
You've never seen it.
Yeah, but in YouTube there's a lot of this.
You can see it.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sant'Elmo.
They call it ball of fire, but it's not really a ball. It's like a random fire. Traveling
In the air.
in the air. Yeah.
Floating balls of fire. They're said to be the souls of people lost at sea.
I don't think so.
You have to sprinkle salt on your sails to keep them away.
What does YouTube say?
Some people say it's formed by sunlight coming into contact with spilled human blood. Whoa, okay, yeah. Yeah, sounds like a Avodah Zarah to me, but thank you. It's just... Anyways, if you see fire that's not part of the thunderstorm, I don't think you say Oseh Maaseh Bereshit. That's only if it's part.
And also, like sometimes when you live near the sea, you actually can see this glowing algae, which comes to the shore and floats the whole seashore. So.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, if it's a unique and impressive phenomenon that's part of God's nature, then you can say Sema Bereshit, whatever you're moved by amazing natural phenomenon that reminds you that God created the world. You say Sema Bereshit, blessed are you, Lord of God, author of creation. It's a part of creation which moves us to wonder and to amazement. You say Sema Bereshit. Yeah.
I mean, this is something impressive, and but the next one is something. It's.
Which one? Rainbow?
No.
Which? Shekocho Gvorato. Yeah. The power and might. That's something else. That's like a current event, like a powerful wind, like a hurricane, or a powerful thunder. Natural disaster. Yeah. Shekocho Gvorato Melei Olam was what you would say. B'atzlacha, you're going to be great. Okay. B'atzlacha. He's got an interview. Whoa. Yeah.
Looks like this. See.
Yeah, very cool.
Oh yeah, he's
In the sea.
Oh, yeah.
Fluorescent algae.
Bioluminescent algae.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. We have this in my country.
Yeah, you have that? Yeah. Amazing. Oseh Maaseh Bereshit, for sure.
Where?
So it's all in the Indian Ocean and
Somewhere in India.
They call it the blue tears of the sea. Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Blue tears of the sea. Okay. Okay. So let's go on. Seeing a rainbow. Rainbows are a unique one because we have the tradition in our Torah that God made a covenant with who? With Noach. When he came out, he's not going to destroy the world again. And so whenever we see the rainbow, we remind ourselves, we thank Hashem for making a covenant. What's the bracha? Zocher abrit, remembers the covenant. V'ne'eman bivrito, is faithful to the covenant. And v'kayam b'ma'amaro, and fulfills his word. So there's a debate. Some people say that it's actually not a good thing that when you see a rainbow. It's a bad sign. Because what does it mean? It means that God has to remind himself not to destroy us. Meaning, he was going to destroy us. He wanted to destroy us. But he reminded us of the covenant. So basically, it's a sign that we're doing something wrong. We need the protection of the covenant. It means, we've got a problem. So, but other people say, wow, what a beautiful natural phenomenon. It's a strange thing that God made a covenant about a natural phenomenon. You take a glass of water and the sunlight comes in, you see a rainbow. So it's a natural phenomenon. So already the earlier commentators discussed this, and they say it doesn't really contradict. The point is, the Ramban says that the rainbow is like the ancient warriors. They used the bow and arrow, right? The bow is facing who you're attacking, right? So Hashem, he says, I'm not longer going to attack earth, the people on earth. So what do you do when you surrender? You turn your bow around. When you surrender, you turn the bow so that it's facing away from you. You can't shoot anymore. So that gesture of having the bow away from God is God saying, okay, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm not going to destroy the world. It's a symbolic representation of
See, upside down rainbow, that's when we got to run.
Oh, yeah. That's correct. That's right. Take cover. But other people say that there's a tradition that one of the great scholars, I forget which one now, of the sages, he said, when they were trying to sing his praises and say how powerful, what an amazing spiritual person he was, they said his entire lifetime, 120 years, there was never a rainbow in the sky. Because he and his great deeds was protecting all of humanity from Hashem. Hashem didn't need the reminder of the rainbow to stop him because he was such a pious person. So in some ways, the rainbow is a little bit of a sign that we're in trouble a little bit, that we're sinning, and Hashem has to use the rainbow. But ultimately, in the end of the day, it's a sign from Hashem. It reminds us that Hashem made a covenant that we're going to survive. Thinking of AI recently, it's the biggest danger to humanity, perhaps ever. Yeah.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure. There is a small chance, though. But we take a lot of security risks, security precautions when it comes to, most places in the world, they don't have nuclear energy because it's just too dangerous. If one thing goes wrong, even though it's 1% chance of something going wrong, when it does go wrong, that's like it could wipe out. So AI, even though if it's a very small percentage, maybe it may not be such a small percentage of chance that something will go wrong, and it's actually closer to 50-50 chance that something will go wrong, it could mean the end of humanity. So if this is that's it. So as I'm saying, in this context, Hashem promised us that He's gonna never destroy the Jewish people, but that's Him. Natural events. He's not going to bring a flood. If we bring it upon ourselves, if we create the AI, if we create the monsters, maybe Hashem won't protect us. I don't know. So, but there's a lot to think about.
There's a lot of levels to that, especially because I was in spot learning about a little bit of Kabbalah and Chassidus, and there's things that you learn that. For one instance, that truth can only come from the infinite to the finite, right? You can't go from finite to infinite. So because of the fact that computers use logic gates of ones and zeros and only deal in finite dimensions,
it's true.
They can never define the infinite. So they can never reach any sort of power that is.
Yeah, I agree with you that infinity is beyond.
It can never affect a part of our soul that is infinite, the Yechida.
Yafeh. Yeah. That's all this discussion of AI leaves this out. This issue of Hashem and the soul, and it's all about intelligence. But we have other parts of our human makeup which are significant, which hopefully will enable us to prevail and to handle the beast, self-created beast. Some people say within 10 years. Within 10 years, we could have, so it's called general intelligence. Right now, there's artificial intelligence about local things, but one specific issue, like you could train a computer to play chess or to win at Go. But it's improving exponentially. And so if it knows how to improve itself,
It's still going to be artificial intelligence.
it's always improving itself, yeah, but it's still localized. But the concept of artificial general intelligence, AGI, not AI that we have now, AI we can handle. Once it gets to that, then they're as smart as people are, and then
No, they can't. It's still.
that's the concept of AGI.
It doesn't exist.
Which is unflipping.
Like our brains work on a quantum computing level, which is it doesn't use like absolute yes ones or zeros like yes or no's. Our brain works on like uses like chemicals exist in a superposition between 1 and 0, so we get this infinite continuous range that we can like sort of define things as. So to say that the artificial intelligence the way it is right now is going to be like capable it's not even close. It's not even a fraction of a percent close
Correct.
to human intelligence. You have to think about it as if somehow you combine quantum computing with AI, and then you start getting into scariness.
And there's no reason that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The improvements are exponential. In other words, for the last 20 years, they've been working on AI. And finally, I think like 7 years ago, they managed, you know what Go is? The game Go. Do you know how to play? You know, I don't know how to play. It's a very complicated game. Very complicated game. And it's been about 1,000 years old, the game of Go. And so they fed the computer 800 games from history, and they taught it. And within a couple of years, the computer played the number 1 Go master in the world, and he beat him. 2 against 1, 2 games to 1. This was 7 years ago.
It's not like a finite boundary of it.
Exactly, it's just localized. But just to show you the speed of how things are developing, after that, recently, I don't know exactly when the times were, it's already a couple of years ago, they decided, we've got a new algorithm. We're not going to show the computer any previous games. We're just going to let the computer play against itself. Go millions of times. And within half an hour of turning this machine on, it beats any human 100 to 0. It beats everybody within a half an hour of learning. The game which humanity developed over 1,000 years, within half an hour, so it's improving exponentially. So that's why we don't know. It's getting a little scary.
You can look at the bright side of it as a sort of like fulfillment of prophecy. Like it's going to take away these sort of things that like we do. Like
Amen. I hope you're right. I hope it's up to us to figure out a way to control the beast, to handle it. The problem is, I'm not so confident that we've learned how to control the beast within us, the Yetzer Hara. And people are, you would hope after thousands of years, we'd be more moral, we'd be more disciplined, we'd be more intelligent. But the fact is, there's only, one Einstein, maybe 100 Nobel Prize winners with amazing intelligence. Once AI becomes AGI, there'll be 1 million Einsteins.
Maybe this is just an explain.
Well, we don't. Yeah, but then people are going to.
It could be. Of course. It's been like that till recently, and that's why I never really gave it any much thought. But in the last,
messaging with America and China, and you have to take it with a pinch of salt.
Of course.
Word games.
Anyways, we don't know the future, but. I think the key is to learn Mesilat Yesharim, to be moral, to improve people, and then when the people make the machines will hopefully be smart enough to put them in the right space. Anyways, there is a bracha for human wisdom. We're going to get to it soon. But anyways, back to the rainbow. God will decide that He won't destroy us. Maybe we never said He's going to protect us from ourselves. And he lets us have free reign and free will and, kill each other. Unfortunately, right? The 20th century, more people were killed than ever in human history because we got more capability, technology, dynamite, weapons. Unfortunately, we're still struggling to control ourselves. Bezrat Hashem, we'll figure it out in time. Okay, continuing on. There's one more bracha on sight. The bottom of the page. Last line on page 1078 and 1079. When you go to the sea, which is amazing, and it's on the next, so when you go to the Pacific Ocean, when you go to the Atlantic Ocean, and you stand at the shore and you see, wow, or if you even go on a boat.
It's on a plane?
Or on a plane. You could make the bracha. What bracha would you make? This is a natural phenomenon, which is impressive. What bracha would you make? We just learned it. Oseh Maaseh Bereshit, author of creation. There's a specific bracha brought in the Talmud, Rabbi Yehuda says, specifically for the Mediterranean, because the Mediterranean, even though it's not the greatest of the oceans, it's the one associated with the Holy Land. It's ours. It's connected in some way to the Jewish people. And so there's a bracha called She'asai Ta'am HaGadol, who made the Great Sea. It's only made on the Mediterranean. And when you go to Tel Aviv, or to Rishon LeZion, or to Ashdod, or to Ashkelon, you go check out the coast. It's very impressive. It's an amazing phenomenon. Make a bracha, either Oseh Maaseh Bereshit or She'asai Ta'am HaGadol. What if you live in Tel Aviv? You see it every day. You don't make the bracha every day. It says here, as you see here, first time in 30 days. If you haven't seen something, an amazing phenomenon, for 30 days, the assumption is you'll be impressed once again when you encounter it. But if you see it more regularly, you get used to it. It's the nature of the beast, that we get used to things. And my wife's beautiful. But I see her every day, so I don't make a bracha on her. We're going to see, there's actually a bracha on a beautiful human being. But we'll get to that in a minute. Right now, we're talking about the ocean. And so if you haven't seen the ocean for 30 days, then you make the bracha once again, next time you go to the ocean. Okay? Let's continue. Next page, 1080. Please, you're having ragalach? Zachariah, you had some ragalach? Help yourself. It's for you. Yeah. Are you celiac?
Yeah.
So is my daughter, yeah. Okay. Like officially, like not just...
I haven't gone to the doctor, but I can guarantee...
I see. You never had a biopsy?
No.
My daughter had a biopsy, yeah. So
it's the point where if I eat like something contaminated, it's just...
You're sick.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that, but now you know, so you can, it's probably healthier anyways. Excellent! I was waiting. Why did I bring them in? Because we got to practice what we preach. We're learning about brachot. What's the bracha? Borei minei mezonot. It's made with wheat. So it's a mixture. And what did we say yesterday about the mixture? You only make the bracha on the primary food. And I actually wanted to teach you an additional halacha. So when it comes to flour from the 5 grains, mezonot, it's almost never, secondary. Because grain is such a basic staple of life, unless you're celiac. But the standard is that it's such an important food. The bracha borei minei mezonot, it's always going to be primary. So when I have schnitzel, now I'm not having schnitzel anymore because it has eggs in it. I found out I have an egg allergy. Strange. Yeah, and so they stick the breadcrumbs onto the schnitzel with eggs. So I'm trying to stay away from it. Yeah. Shame. I like schnitzel, but well, I'll have to find some way to stick it on with glue, maybe. That's.
Water and flour.
It doesn't stick on as much, but without eggs.
Like
But
Chinese, like cornstarch or
Yeah,
potato
cornstarch.
starch.
yeah, if I do that, hopefully that'll work. But anyways, it's a recent thing. The point is, I used to, when I had schnitzel, I would make a mizonot on schnitzel.
Really?
Why? Because the breadcrumbs are made from grain, and they're never tafel. That's the words in Hebrew. Primary and secondary are ikar and tafel. Primary is ikar, foundational, and tafel is secondary. So the law is mizonot is so important. It's never tafel. So if you have in your salad, you have some croutons. Assuming the croutons are not hamotzi lechem min haaretz, because they were not made as bread and then turned into. Sometimes croutons, the more industrial types of croutons, they're made as croutons from the factory. They're deep fried and they're not really baked. They're just made as croutons. So the bracha is mezonot. So when I have a salad, I've got my cucumbers, lettuce, and tomatoes, and onions, and croutons mixed in. I make a mezonot on the mixture. Yesterday we said a salad is a mixture. Not everything is separate. If it's like so mixed in together, it's one entity. So you go for what's primary and what's secondary. So I make a mezonot if I have croutons. Some croutons are hamotzi, and then you got to make hamotzi. So, but mezonot is never tafel. That's the general principle. There's one exception. And some people say that schnitzel's the exception. But I'll tell you why. I don't think so. It depends on the type of schnitzels. But for me, I love that coating so much that it's there for the taste. The exception is if sometimes you put in some flour to make a ball, to make it stick together. Like you have meatballs and you put in some flour so it sticks better. So then the grain, the flour is there not for its taste. It's there only as a sticking agent. So then it's tafel. Then it becomes secondary. You don't make a mezonot on meatballs, even though there's a little bit of flour in them, because it's not there for the taste. But schnitzel, which is covered, they usually have salt and delicious things in the covering itself. The coating is there, not just, some people say the cheaper schnitzels that are very cheap, that coating is so thin, it's really just to keep it together as a unit, to separate it from the other one. And it doesn't really have any good taste, and so that's secondary. And make your shahako on the chicken.
The key is garlic.
The key is?
Garlic.
Garlic. Aha.
In the bread.
In the breading, in the okay.
Dried herbs.
Yeah. So people make that coating tasty. And if the coating is there to be tasty, then you have to make a mezonot on it. And once it's one entity, it's when there's no two separate things. So you make a mezonot on schnitzel, and most schnitzels, unless the coating is just there to bind it together without any taste to it. But anyways, there's a debate about that. It's true 100% that mezonot is never batel. And of course here with chocolate's yummy, but there's no question that a pastry, the point is to have a pastry. It's not a chocolate bar. The point is that you have the taste of the dough that's baked. And so that is made from grain. So the bracha is mezonot, and once you have one of the mix is mezonot, for sure the chocolate, as much as you love chocolate, it becomes secondary to the mezonot. Bracha on aragalach is borei minei mezonot.
What about a shake?
A shake that has in it
Well, mostly fruit. But yesterday I learned bananas are not fruit, they're
ha'adama. So if you have fruits and vegetables, the question though with a shake,
is primary and secondary is the question?
yeah, primary is that's one question. But let's say you figure it out. Okay, let's say you've got lots of fruit and just a little bit of carrot, right, mixed into the shake. So you would say you go by the primary, it should be ha'etz or ha'adama. Question is, do you have water in there? Most of them are based on milk or based on water. A shake, you usually have some liquid in there. It's not just pure concentrated. It's not as tasty. So you have water. So it's a mix. But what's the primary food? You would think, well, it's not a water shake. It's a fruit shake, right? So you should make ha'etz. Some people say you should make ha'etz on a fruit shake. Other people say there's another calculation that we haven't mentioned yet, and that is that you really only make a bracha on a fruit when it's in its original shape. It's a noticeable shape. It's a noticeable chunk of kiwi. It's a noticeable shape of a grape. But once it's been mashed to smithereens, like in these shakes, what they do is they're put in a blender, and it's just one big mush. It doesn't look like anything. It doesn't look like a carrot. It doesn't look like a kiwi. It's just a mush. So once it's turned into mush, it loses its special bracha of Borei Pri Ha'etz or Borei Pri Adama. And if you lose the special bracha, you go back to the base level. What's the base level bracha on everything? Shako. So that's when I drink, if I buy a jug of orange juice from the Makolet, and it says on it, 100% squeezed orange juice, I still make a shahako. Yeah. Because you don't see any orange. The form of the orange is gone. And so it loses its original bracha. That's what I was saying yesterday. So to qualify a little bit, we said if you have a cream of potato soup and there's no broth. So I said the bracha should be ha'adama. It's only if you can still see a little bit of pieces of potato. But if it's totally creamed up and it's all mushy, then probably shahako. Sometimes, usually soup, you can see a little bit of the pieces. Even if it's all creamed, you say, and so then the bracha on the soup would be ha'adama without any shahako, just ha'adama. But so there's a few calculations here. It's quite complicated. Yes?
Yeah, before I learned why the orange juice the orange juice in the
shahako.
The shape already changed.
The shape changed, exactly.
And then how to separate the ha'ed and the adama? The ha'ed, why the better are not ha'ed? Because ha'ed is the wood.
Correct.
Yeah.
The trunk stays from year to year. The trunk of the tree, yeah.
Wood, just adama from the land.
Correct. That's right. That's a good way to think of it.
For example, go to the wedding party, they already cut. You don't know which
That's right. It's something orange. It could be a carrot, and it could be a papaya, a persimmon. It's orange also. So you don't know what it is. So yeah, that's And some people don't know what grows in a tree or what grows on the ground. For example, I was sitting around, believe it or not, in a conversion court, and the rabbis, they want to know if you know your blessings. So, and sometimes they don't even know what to ask because they do it every day. Sometimes they're a little bored. So they see someone, so they ask, so tell me something about blessings. What's an interesting blessing to you? Something that's interesting, because they know they've been studied. It's not really a test anymore. Once they come with such good recommendations like Machon Meir, the judges are very sure that this guy is all right. He has my recommendation letter. They don't really have to test them. So they're just looking, they have to have a conversation for the protocol. So once they said, a student of ours said, tell me something interesting about Brachot. So he says the bracha on pineapple. So the rabbis start discussing it. What's the bracha on pineapple? Some people say, is it ha'etz or is it adama? And then finally somebody who was in the crowd, not one of the dayanim, says, listen, I used to work on a kibbutz when I made aliyah, and they grew pineapples. It grows in the ground, I'm telling you. There's no tree. the tip of it where it has those the leaves. That's the only thing that sticks out of the ground. The fruit itself is in the ground. It's ha'adama. So we call pineapple a fruit, but really the way it grows, as the Yisrael said, you look at it, you have to know how it grows. If it grows in the ground, it's ha'adama. So that was a discussion at the conversion court.
If it's unrecognizable, it's
well, if you don't know any better, if you know for sure it's a fruit or a tree or a vegetable, so then we didn't talk about this yesterday, but then you hedge your bets. In other words, you know for sure it grew from the ground. It's not a piece of meat, fish, eggs. It's not water. It's not something. It's organic, right? It grew from a crop. So the halacha says as follows: if you're not sure, the safer bet is borei pri ha'adama, because even a fruit that grows on the tree also ultimately, where does a tree grow? In the ground. So even trees grow in the ground. And so if you don't know if it's a fruit or vegetable, you say the bracha on the vegetable and you're covered. But if the opposite, if you're wrong, and you said borei pri ha'etz on something which is not, like a pineapple, if you said borei pri ha'etz on a pineapple, it's not kosher. It's not a proper bracha because it's not true. He did not create the fruit of the tree in a pineapple. And so if you're not sure what it is, if you're sure that it's organic, it grows from the ground, say the borei pri ha'adama, not the borei pri ha'etz, because otherwise you might get yourself into trouble. Or, as we said, what is also an option? Always an option. Shehakol. Shehakol is always covers all your bases.
Like gluten-free pizza, I just have to assume that there's no oat flour in it. I just have to assume it's shehakol. Sometimes I ask them, but I don't know if I can trust.
They should know. They should be able to tell you. Now, oat flour is a little more expensive. They would know that. Usually, it's potato starch or something like that. Potato flour, I mean. Or now they have all sorts of flours. Interesting flours. Buckwheat's great, but the cheaper ones, there's tapioca and there's all sorts of stuff. On what?
Sugarcane.
That's interesting.
China people also know.
So why isn't it hadama? Because it's processed. It doesn't have the form. It doesn't grow as a... You eat the cane itself from the ground?
Yeah.
If that's the form of it...
You're not eating the sugar cane, you're just sucking the juice out.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the big question. What's the bracha on chewing gum? Chewing gum.
Oh. Is there a bracha? Because you spit it out.
That's it. You're not really eating anything.
That's right.
So there's a debate. There's a debate, right? When you finish you chew for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. I mean, some kids chew it all day long. And then you throw it out because you shouldn't swallow it.
Is it a smell?
Mainly, the primary purpose is the taste. So it's debatable whether you should make a bracha at all. But if you do, you make a shehakol. But
because you see it as disrespectful, thanks for this going, and then you're like this.
Right. If you're not eating it, you shouldn't make a bracha. But most people assume you that taste, the juice that you sort of suck out of the gum, is sort of like the taste that you suck out of the sugar cane, is what you're eating, is what you're enjoying, and so the shehakol is the bracha. It's like
Hadama of the potato chips in the packet.
So this is a big question of what brand of potato chips you're eating. Pringles. They take the corn and they mush it. Pringles is corn, potatoes and corn. It's a mixture. They mush it, they smash it, they blend it up, and then they reconstitute it in that special shape. Yeah. So because it lost its original form, the bracha is shehakol. But other potato chips, like here in Israel, they actually slice a potato very, very thin and fry it up. It's hadama. So it depends what type of potato chips. Sometimes in Israel, the ones produced in Israel, they write on the package, Birkato ha'adama. You can actually see it. They tell you what the bracha is on the package. Amazing. It's very useful, if they're correct.
Recently we said papaya. What is the bracha of the papaya?
Papaya, there's a debate about it. Well, I think if there's a debate, you don't know if it's ha'etz or adama, what should you do? Adama, right? Ha'etz or adama, you choose the safer bet.
Mushrooms?
Shahakol. Mushrooms are shahakol. We said yesterday, mushrooms don't grow on the ground. They can grow on a
There
rock.
are people who say
No.
Yeah.
Who says adama on mushrooms?
It's a bacteria.
Never heard of such a that.
The Israel from my room say Adama.
Maybe you should tell him to come and speak to me because I think he's wrong. I don't think there's anybody that says
This
that.
Rabbi also makes Adama.
That's something else. Maybe there's an opinion that considers mushrooms adama. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. But I think the standard custom is shahakol on mushrooms. All right. Anyways, there's a lot to discuss. What is papaya? Yeah, the problem is, does it stay from year to year?
It does. If it grows from the ground, like it won't fruit the first year. The first year it grows back from the ground, you won't really have fruit. Even the second year, maybe the third of the. So it's not like you cut it every season and it regrows. It has to be like big enough.
But it's like a date.
But it can regrow.
It's like a date,
Right. The inside is hollow. There's no inside.
No, it's not solid.
The base is
It's more like bamboo. It's kind of like a hollow, like just a very very big plant.
Every tree is the same. The
No.
It's dead.
So the halacha,
Bark is living.
But there's also another thing. The taste decreases as
No,
years go by.
it's not dead. It's hollow.
The taste of
It's like a
papaya decreases as the years go by.
So in halacha, there's a few opinions about what constitutes a tree versus a vegetable for this issue. One opinion is, does the trunk stay from year to year? That's the basic one. It's easy to remember. That's what Yisrael said as well. If there's a tree, it's ha'etz. With vegetable, nothing stays. You replant it. You have to plant each time, and it grows from scratch. So of course, and then it dies out, and then you plant a new one, right? Or you take some seeds and replant it. So that's for sure a vegetable. That's one criterion. There's another criterion mentioned, and that is there's another halacha about trees that the Torah speaks about, and that's orla. That for the first 3 years, the fruit of the tree is forbidden. Now, that leads some commentators to say, well, what gets defined as a tree? Something that gives fruit year after year. And some trees, most trees, don't give fruit for the first few years. And then for the next 20 years, they do give fruit until it dies. Could be 100 years from now. But so that's another sign that it's a tree. Now, what do you do when you have one without the other? You might have the trunk stay, but it gives lots of fruit at the beginning, and then it stops giving fruit. So it's sort of like a vegetable in that way. And the produce, the range of produce is like a vegetable, but the mechanics is like a tree. So that's why we get lots of debates amongst the poskim. And that's the debate about papaya. I think.
I don't think I ever resolve that one because papaya is so strange. It's like you could with orla it could grow for you can have for 6-7 years and it's having a lot of fruit. But then you can have a bad frost and it kills it. And you have to chop it down to its root. But then it grows again. And then you have another waiting years until you get good fruit again. So it's very strange.
Right.
You have to.
Very, very strange plan. Yeah, I don't think you can come to an absolute.
Well, what's the solution we said yesterday?
Adama.
No. What's another solution we said yesterday? No, another solution we said yesterday. Well, we talked about you're not sure whether you make bracha on your chicken soup, on the broth and the vegetables. What's the solution we suggested?
Both.
You eat something else that has a bracha of ha'adama and something else that has a bracha of shahakol, and it covers your soup. Same thing with papaya. You could eat, take a bite of an apple and take a bite of a carrot, and then you could have your papaya and you're covered one way or the other. Some,
That's the thing. The Chabad.
or make hamotzi. Make hamotzi. Make hamotzi covers everything. But really, the halacha we should be able to answer the questions, and that's why I think the standard psak is to say ha'adama on papaya, and passiflora as well. Passiflora is complicated as well. It's very similar to the papaya. And there is a vine that stays from year to year. Passion fruit. But it dies off after a couple of years. And so how can you consider it a fruit? You're not going to have any orla. You're not going to have anything after. If you just say it's a fruit, that means you can't have the fruit for 3 years. That means you're never going to eat it. So why did God create it? Right? Why did God create a fruit that we're not allowed to eat? It's really strange. But some people say, well, we follow the rules, follow the guidelines. If it has a trunk that stays from year to year, it's considered a fruit, and so you're not allowed to have it for 3 years. And sometimes it can last 4, 5, 6 years. So then you do get some fruit, like the papaya. So it's a very similar question. It's a debated, but until today, I think if you say ha'adama, you're safe. And regarding the question of orla, there's room to be machmir. But of course, if your rabbi tells you otherwise, then that's fine, because it makes sense. Yes.
What if farmers they plant vegetable, but not on the soil? Can we say still pre-adama?
Good question. Hydroponics.
Yes.
Yeah.
People can grow things in water. No soil whatsoever. Just the roots are in water.
It's created to grow on the ground.
Exactly. I think the most poskim say that by nature it grows in the ground, and the fact that you happen to grow it not in the ground, that doesn't change the bracha. So if you have tomatoes, most tomatoes grow in the earth, and so it's part of Pri Adama. It's called the fruit of the earth. Even if this particular tomato came from water, it was grown in water, you still say Adam on it. Although there's room to debate that as well, as opposed to mushrooms, which never grows in the ground, even if it happens to be on the surface of the ground. It's not because its roots are coming down into the earth. It doesn't have any roots.
It's not really.
The spores.
It's got a mycelium network underneath. It's in the ground.
It's mostly in the ground.
It could be on the wood.
Yeah.
Mushrooms can be on wood.
Is what turns, like, when something dies, fungus goes into action. It turns dead something into earth. I mean, there's no wood.
It also provides the nutrients for the.
It's not a root like a plant, but it's like 99% on the ground.
Yeah.
What pops up is just like
it's called a fruiting body.
The future is fungus.
I thought it was AI.
I saw this like documentary. Like they discovered fungus that can process crude oil.
Yeah.
It can like grow and like turn crude oil into something like.
Amazing.
The Japanese used fungus to design the subway system. They took a petri dish, and then they put like dots where all the cities are, and then they had this mycelium fungus go in, and it made connections, and it kind of like made lines like this, and it made the most optimal path for like the subway
to go
system.
from one point to another point.
Yeah, and they do all these. I don't know what they use for points. Some type of food or something. And like the mycelium networks, sort of stuff.
We'll call it.
So you call that nature.
GI, God's intelligence.
Exactly. Nature, Teva.
GI, not AGI, but GI, God's intelligence.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like they think trees talk to each other.
They do,
through the fungus under the ground. The fungus is this huge.
They talk to each other with the
Right. Interesting. So I don't know.
Yeah, pollen has a massive amount of information, and each pollen cell is goes through sexual.
Did you study biology or?
Yeah, I went to school for biochemistry.
Biochemistry. So you know what you're talking about. Not like me. I don't. I'm just the layman here. But in terms of halachic definitions, it's not clear that we always use the botanical definitions, right? Like we were saying before, there's a third, does it give fruit in the first 3 years, and whether it has a trunk, and there's a third definition of what constitutes a tree versus a vegetable. I can't remember right now what it is, but the halakhic definitions are not always equal to the botanical definitions. But okay, let's proceed. Page 1080 on the top. Hopefully you said this bracha a couple months ago. The custom is to say it in the month of Nisan, although you don't have to. It's the time in every country. It could be all around the world in a different time. But the point is, at the beginning of the spring, when the fruit trees are blossoming, you see trees blossoming, you make the following blessing. Sheloch yisal ba'olamo klum, is withheld nothing from his world, is created in beautiful creatures and trees, human beings has joy. So there's a bracha on the flowering of the new trees in the springtime, and basically once a year we say that bracha. You go out. Now there's all sorts of debates. Some people say you have to see 2 trees. And what time? They have to see them in the stage of flowering. Not as some people say it's too late if the flowers already fall off and there's buds. Others say you don't actually have to see the flowers. The point is the springtime. But we try to be machmir and see. And some people say you have to have, because the language of the blessing is in plural. Trees in plural. So you have to have more than one. Some people say you have to have more different types. So one lemon tree that's blossoming and one apple tree that's blossoming. So there's debates about that. Then they say you shouldn't say the bracha on Shabbat. Why shouldn't you say the bracha on Shabbat? Because according to the Kabbalists, every bracha that you make, you're doing spiritual work. The way the Kabbalists define the spiritual work, there's like goodness in the world, and with every good, there's a little bit of bad. The bad is called the husks, like the shell. And so when you make a bracha, basically you're shelling, you're taking off the shell, taking off the bad from the good, and so you're elevating God's brute nature, which has a mixture of good and bad in it. And when you connect it to God, when you say a bracha on it, you take off the bad parts, taking off those husks. On Shabbat, are we allowed to separate? Borer. So some Kabbalists say, don't make the bracha on Shabbat because you're violating the laws of Shabbat, of separating the bad from the good. That's a very interesting stretch, a very Kabbalistic direction. But the bottom line is, if you only have time during the week, you're in your office from day to night, and you never see the flowering trees. And on Shabbat, you have time to go, especially if you want to take the whole community together. People have more time on Shabbat. You take them to the nearest garden where there's flowering fruit trees. It's custom to be machmir that they should have fruit. It's a fruit tree, not just a fruit with flowers just for aesthetics. If that's the best time that you have, and that's the best time the community can gather, you can make the bracha on Shabbat as well. I'm a little bit less of a Kabbalist than others, but there's a lot of details of this bracha. Every Nisan, we say it. We said it here on the last day of the semester before the break, because we go on break at the beginning of Nisan. And so the last thing we do in the yeshiva schedule in the winter's man, it's the beginning of the spring, is we go together as a group, the whole yeshiva, and we say this bracha together. I think we're going to stop here for the blessings. It's Thursday.
Yeah.
We have to sing some songs, l'chvod Shabbat. Every Thursday we sing some songs. I'll just be back in 1 second. You guys give out the
Next to the Halakha. Yeah. Yep. No. Yes. in India there is papaya tree also, right?
How's it? I think it's one.
It's easy to grow.
I mean, you don't do anything like this grows.
Just throw out the seed, you grow. Yeah, papaya is very easy to grow. I don't know if but in our country it's very easy.
Well, there's a story in was it Solomon that like there is like Israel is connected. The ground in Israel is connected to every part of the planet. And like Solomon could like figure out like, you know, from India, you know, this is the connection point. So in this place between Israel and India, we can grow what grows in India, and
Yeah, he's a
Where is that?
genius.
that's from Solomon. He was like he had this kind of nebuah.
Where is that read? Where did I read about that?
I don't know. I got that from Israeli TV.
Okay.
He the Brooks was like this. Yeah, Zimmer Cohen.
I used to watch when they had English subtitles. I watch everything. Now they don't release it
No.
with English subtitles.
Maybe online though. I mean,
Yeah.
No, I checked, but still not English subtitles. One thing is
You learn Hebrew. You learn Hebrew.
Is students are like
Yeah. But I mean, Hebrew is like mainstream Mizrahi. So it shouldn't be, you know, too esoteric or something.
Oh no, I'm fine. That's esoteric. I was curious. I wanted to
I mean,
read
like
it.
it should be like, you know, it shouldn't be too hard to find. I mean, it should be like a Shlomo, like he had like part of his nebuah was that, you know, his prophecy that he could, like he knew plants, like all the different. So he had like he created like a pharmacy book of like you have this disease, you take this plant, you mix them together, boom.
There's Ramban, right? No. Ramban?
No, this was Shlomo. But after he died, people started using it for poison. So they destroyed the book. And that's
And there was another book like which was used for healing people.
That's the original.
But it's written in the Talmud also, I think. Book with all the healing cures and everything.
I think Chizkiyahu had like some like he collected parts of it and
But people were misusing it, like that's what happened.
well, like in the Roman Empire, big time. I mean, if you wanna climb the political ladder, just poison your opponents, just poison the opposition, and it's what Putin does in Russia. It's from the Roman Empire.
How are you going to put it?
I'm British. So many Russians in London, former KGB, and they used what was his name? I forget it. They used radiation poisoning to kill some Russians in England 10 years ago.
I don't know.
Kripchak, or what's his name? Kripchak, I think it is. Yeah. So what have we got here? This is like a songbook?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's like venture.
Venture, yes. And with
Venture.
venture is
It's a-
Yiddish word. Yeah.
Well,
Like a prayer book, like you ask for venture after you finish your meal. To
Yes,
say
bench.
the blessing, so they give you the small booklets, right? To say the blessing, yeah, that's called venture.
Okay.
Grace of the meal.
I also don't know what it means. I'm like,
Yes. Rabbi explained. Yeah, it's Yiddish. It's venture.
Okay. Well, in Hebrew it's a birkon,
Yeah, because
like a mini blessing, like
Can.
So it's all songs?
Yes, most of it is song.
Oh.
Because that's
I
why.
think this is only used for Shabbat.
Yeah, this mostly for Shabbat. Because
whole Shabbat.
on the meals Shabbat only we sing song whatever.
But where do you get the melody?
Here, Papa Meir together.
All right. These are nice birkonim. It's a little booklet to help you do a bracha. Bracha, birkon. The chaf and the kaf. Change. Other people call them zmironim because they're used for singing zmirot. Zmiron. Yiddish. To bench is to bless.
We had quite
A bencher, yeah, bench means to bless, yeah, bracha. So a bencher helps you bless. It's a blessing book. Okay, we're going to sing a song for Shabbat evening, page 58 and 59. Actually, once upon a time, I think maybe it was composed as a song for Motzei Shabbat, thinking about the week ahead. But many people sing it on Friday night. It speaks about we're preparing all week for Shabbat. Shabbat's the highlight of our week. Let's just want to read it in English for us, Stephen, page 58.
Yeah.
Other than a beautiful picture from the top, yeah. Alavatecha. It's one song, the whole page, yeah.
Lord, I yearn the grace of Shabbat, perfectly fitting.
What? 58.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. I shall drink my cup, joy to your love.
This is you're raising a toast, right? You have a toast. You have a glass of wine. You're saying, I drink to you. Go ahead.
Peace to you, peace, 7th day. The 6th day of work are as left to you. I labor through them, and I am glutted with wandering. All of them.
Glutted, I have too much. I have too much wandering, yeah.
All of them are as a few days in my eyes. So great is my love for you. Days of my pleasure.
Day.
Day of my pleasure.
He's speaking to the Shabbat. Shabbat, you are what I'm aiming for, what I love. Go ahead.
I go out on Sunday to my labor, to lay order ready for the Shabbat day. For God has planted blessing there. You alone are my portion for all my pains. My holy days shine with my holy ones like sun and stars. All envy my sun. What care I for Monday? What for Tuesday? Wednesday may hide away the light it brought to be. By Thursday I shall hear a messenger of good. For by then tomorrow will be rest to my soul. Morning my servitude, evening for freedom. I am called to the table of my king and shepherd. On Friday I find my soul happy, for the time of respite is coming to me. If now I shift and wander to seek some relief, let evening come, I shall forget all my wandering. How lovely it is to me, this twilight time, to greet the Shabbat fest with a new fest of my own. Come among the apple tree, there are many sweet things. This is my days of rest, this my beloved and friend.
It's a beautiful poem to the Shabbat. Okay, so you can find it on YouTube. I'll sing it for you. The tune which is most popular now goes as follows. Alavatecha eshtegevi, shalom lecha shalom, yom hashevi, al ahavatecha eshtegevi, shalom lecha shalom, yom hashvi, sheshet yemei maseh, lecha ka'avadim, אעבוד בהם אסבע נדודים, כולם בעיניהם ימים אחדים, מעבדי וכיום ששוי. From the top. על אהבתך אשתגבי, שלום לך שלום, יום השביעי על אהבתך אשתגבי, גביעי, שלום לך, שלום יום השביעי. אצא ביום ראשון לעשות מלאכה, לערוך ליום שבת המערכה, כי האלוהים שם ברכה, אתה לבד חלקי מכל יגיעי, על אהבתך אשתה גביעי, שלום לך שלום יום השביעי, על אהבתך אשתה גביעי, שלום לך שלום יום השביעי. מאור ליום קודשי, מאור קדושי, שמש וכוכבים קינאו לשירשי, מעלי ליום שני או לשלישי, יסתיר מאותה ביום הרביעי. על אהבתך אשתה גביעי, שלום לך שלום יום השביעי, על אהבתך אשתה גביעי, שלום לך שלום yom hashvi. And continues like that. Very pretty, huh? Very nice tune. Beautiful. Bezrat Hashem. So we should have a great Shabbat. We have a great restful Shabbat. And it's an in Shabbat, right? You're here for Shabbat in yeshiva. Zachariah, you were here for yeshiva for Shabbat in?
Second Shabbat.
Oh, you were here last week?
No,
2 weeks ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Shmuel, you got to get yourself around this part of town to participate in the yeshiva Shabbat. Figure out how it goes. We'll find you a room here for the night if you want. Yeah. Just say the word. No problem.
Yeah.
Get 3 meals. You get singing. You get rogalach in between. You get shiurim. And just tell Rav Listman in a second. There's always an extra room in Eov's room, an extra bed in Eov's room.
How many in Neil's room?
Let's see. Last door.
I don't know, 2, 3. There's
Last time
You can-
give bed to me.
there's always an extra bed. So yeah. Please, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. Okay. All right. Shabbat shalom. Great week, and we'll continue.